Federal government assures Russia of deeper investment relationship. Corporate Affairs Commission CAC targets 24.5 billion naira from registration fees and others. NYSC to remit 511 million naira to the Federation's account. CBN fintech firms collaborate to deepen e-naira adoption. This is Business Express, and we are reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I'm the Ekatung Babatunde, your guide. A warm welcome to the program, and we start by informing you that the federal government is assuring Russia of deeper investment relationship that will be mutually beneficial as the world looks beyond the pandemic. At the meeting with a coalition of 19 Russian companies led by Nigeria's ambassador to Russia and a Nigerian investment community, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment Nia Adebayo assured of adequate returns on investments. It's been 2 years since the Russia-Africa Summit in Sochi, Russia. Ties forged were placed on hold when coronavirus showed up unexpectedly with its attendant consequences. Now, 19 Russian companies are in Nigeria to cement already established relationships as economies open, and a common factor here is the need for stronger political influence from both heads of government.
Our purpose of the presence in Nigeria now is to explore the demand of Nigerian market and to develop the strategy of the presence of all enterprises of our group.
The government of Nigeria will give every support to all the decisions that will be taken. You can rest assured that the government of Nigeria will be supportive of whatever decisions that are taken.
The investors have their eyes on the spread of areas of interest.
But beyond Ajakuta, there are other, value addition industries within the steel sector that will enable us to take off.
We are undertaking the mission within the framework of our foreign policy to engage with countries of the world, and especially Russia.
In the coming days, the visiting team will be meeting with industry players in Abuja and Lagos, as well as northern and southern governors forums. The National Action Committee on the Africa Continental Free Trade Area AFCFTA says it is working with the Nigeria Governors Forum to build economically viable communities to meet with the opportunities available in the single market. Speaking in Abuja, Francis Anatogu, Secretary to the Action Committee, says there is a target of 7 goals with growing domestic demands, the prominent as it engages with subnationals.
There is no silver bullet. That's number one. That's something to note. The second thing is that what we are doing will take time. It will take years. But part of what we are doing is get people to understand and see the potentials, because we believe that when people see the potentials, when people can, communities, states can see the potentials, then it will catalyze action at every level.
It's about policy making, policy implementation, and all that. We've done this well over time, and it's been possible for us to earn the respect of our principals. I mean, we believe in this at the secretariat level. That's why it's been possible to put this prominently on agenda. And I just hope that in the course of this, we will be able to not just understand how to assess, meet those requirements, but how to ensure that services off their deck is more efficient.
With over 488,000 consumer wallets, 78,000 merchant wallets, 17,000 transactions amounting to over 62 million naira, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, and key stakeholders in the payment system sector working on further deepening e-naira adoption in Nigeria. Arising from a one-day engagement session in Lagos, the Apex Bank Payment Service Providers (PSPS) and a large community of fintech groups resolved to work together to ensure more adoption of the recently launched digital bank currency (CBDC), the e-naira, as it remains the game changer in the commerce ecosystem. Speaking at the licensed PSPS engagement session as part of further interaction with a broader category of industry players, the Director Information Technology Department at the CBN, Rekia Mohammed, clarified that the CBN was neither competing with the deposit money banks nor other actors in the Nigerian payment system environment. She explained that the engagement was in continuation of the bank's strategy to bring all stakeholders on board what she described as a journey, noting that the CBN is open to suggestions and innovations aimed at adding value to the e-naira and improving the user experience. She further urged the payment service providers to find more innovative ways to support members of the public where possible in the onboarding process and use of e-naira, as well as develop solutions for offline e-naira functions including cards, wearables, USSD, and others. Now the Monetary Policy Committee is meeting in Abuja and is expected to conclude this afternoon. The 282nd meeting is the last one for the year 2021. And of course, a lot of water has gone under the bridge since the last meeting. Well, what are the factors that are likely to shape the decision of the MPC today? Tokwe Faswa is an economist and he joins me from Lagos. Mr. Tokwe, good morning and welcome to Business Express.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me.
Great. And now, inflation, of course, has slowed. GDP, the growth rate has declined marginally, of course, compared to the last quarter. The question many of us will be asking is, how will these be playing out when the discussion for rates comes up?
Well, the MPC is expected to hold rates for now, because remember that inflation was as high as about 18.12% thereabout, and it's been going down. We've been seeing what's called disinflation for some quarters now. We're now down to 15.99%. So it's not a good time for the CBN, or rather the MPC, to toy with the rates. If they slash rates, for example, below the 11.5% where the monetary policy rate is, then they're toying with a spike in inflation. The theory is the lower the rate, the higher the inflation. There's an inverse relationship. And of course, they can also afford to increase rates because borrowers will complain, manufacturers will complain. The moment they increase the rates, no matter how much, the banks will seize on the opportunity to spike their lending rates as well. So they're expected to hold rates and continue to observe for now. That's it, except they want to be very radical in their approach. But we expect to see this stability. Again, the GDP growth, I saw about 4.04% or thereabout, which was announced earlier this week, or late last week rather, which is not bad, even though it dropped a little from 5.01% in the last quarter. If you look at the economic development plan that was released late last week as well, there's a projection of 5% growth rate for the next 5 years on the average, meaning that Yeah, well, government is beginning to think a little bit more aggressively than like we have always recommended to them. We're moving away from that 2% GDP growth level, which is even below our population growth rate. So at 4%, 5%, we're not doing badly. We expect rates to be held for now.
Okay, while we look at all these expectations, of course, the CBN has continued to inject funds into the economy, particularly the recent one from NEC, 656 billion naira budget support to states. How will this be affecting monetary policy in the short run?
Now, the effect of such injection usually is that it drives off inflation. It's one of the factors that drives inflation in Nigeria. Inflation is hydra-headed, it's for multiple causes, whether from injections into the economy by CBN through monetary policy interventions or their fiscal policy interventions as well, or through imported inflation, given that there's inflation also ticking up in many of our, countries where we import goods from, or from, devaluation of currency, which is, we all know that the naira has suffered a battering in the recent times. So on one hand, because we're still import dependent, we import that inflation as well as the fact that local producers also adjust prices as a result of devaluation. That's why devaluation is not a thing to play with at all. I'm very much against devaluation. So the government, the federal government, will continue to assist the states from time to time, pumping money into the economy, helping them. A lot of the states we know very insolvent and very dependent on whatever money they could get here and there from government, given the fact that they have also, many of them have not done very well in terms of internally generated revenue. But of course, the federal government will not sit by and allow them to go into insolvency, as it were, because that's also is going to have repercussions on society at large. However, many of the states are unable to pay salaries as we speak. Many of them are owing salaries. Some are paying 30% salaries for sometimes 1 year, 1.5 years. It's incredible how our people survive given such scenario. I think that those who are taking the mandate at the state level too should think properly about what it is they are getting into. You don't get into government and then begin to wonder that you did not do your homework very well. Now is the time to do your homework before you take on those mandates. So that may not actually have significant effect on the monetary policy, aside from the effects on inflation as far as I'm concerned, but it will not be a consideration in determining monetary policy rates. The numbers that central bank is working on is huge, in terms of money supply. That's basically not significant to move Nigeria's money supply, which is something in the region of 38 trillion naira or thereabouts.
Okay, let me just stray out a bit. You just mentioned how incredible we survive considering some of these harsh conditions. But then the AFCFTA. Now, as I speak, there's a sort of meeting between the National Action Committee and, of course, the subnationals and the whole gamut of regulatory agencies and ministries, key ministries involved going on in Abuja, and it's going to last the next 2 days by my estimations. So how do we marry these things? What are the policy issues we need now, both on the monetary side and, of course, on the fiscal side, to boost the productivity of our people? We cannot just continue to wait to take paychecks at the end of the month, considering the dynamics before us.
There's so many things we can do. It's a total hands-on approach that must be undertaking, as it were. We are talking about the AFCFTA, the fact that now African countries need to compete amongst themselves for productivity. And by that productivity, I mean, there's something called economic complexity, which is very, very germane to us in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, out of 133 countries surveyed, Nigeria happens to be the last in the rung. We're the last in terms of economic complexity, and economic complexity actually describes the the knowledge quotient of goods and services produced in a country. So we're saying that Nigeria has the lowest knowledge input in the goods and services it produces, apart from crude oil. The rest is, you get cocoa, you get sesame seeds and all of that. You get nuts like cashew nuts. Those are the things we export. And we're saying that we're not even producing enough for our people. And so we're so externally focused. Our job is ordinarily should be cut out for us. Unfortunately, we don't do the right thing at the right time. And people like us, we're tired of complaining. So even things like fiscal policy has not measured up to expectation, as it were. The kind of fiscal reforms that we should have undertaken, we have not done that. And therefore, we have actually fired too many of our monetary policy bullets already. That's why you see sometimes, in spite of everything, people will still complain about central bank getting involved in everything, including fiscal policy. But if the fiscal reforms are not coming through, for example, if the National Assembly is not reforming itself, will not reform itself, we are still going to continue spending money as if money is going out of circulation. If you look at the budget for this year, it's still many times all about those same old things that they keep budgeting for year on year. We talk about buying cars and so on. We're not stretching our resources the way we should. We're not even buying local with taxpayers' money. Okay, taxpayers' money should be locked down to buy only local. And economic complexity should be improved by forcing the process. You have to force the process. Even when you say you want to devalue currencies, look, when you devalue and you keep your economy open to all sorts of things and they keep dumping things on you, and this is what got us to this point. That's why I'm in support of the idea that those 41, 42 items should be restricted from importation to a certain extent. We can't continue funding such importation like rice, like Indian incense, like candles, like toothpicks and co. And people still criticize those kind of policies. It's because people don't want to care. They don't care how it's done. People are just focused on what they get for themselves. So there's a whole raft of reforms that can be done. Monetary policy is almost tired now. Okay, that's why the central bank itself will not sit down and be talking of inflation alone. They'll also think in terms of, okay, what do we do to encourage employment? And therefore, you see them intervening in aviation, in agri, in manufacturing, intervening in many sectors just to get something going. Perhaps without the central bank issuing those monies out, I don't know what could have become of the economy, because fiscally we are unable to reform because the fiscal sector is under heavy political capture. Okay, the Minister of Finance can only do so much. At some point, the politicians will move in and tell you, this is according to the Constitution, this, that, I want my thing, I want it now. And when they get whatever it is they want for their so-called constituency, everybody suffers it at the end of the day. Nobody is saving anything. Nobody is reforming anything. Nobody is producing anything. And so that's where we find ourselves. And so hopefully the AFCFTA will force us to sit up, because countries like Ghana, for example, even in terms of taxation, which is one of the key issues in fiscal policy, we're the lowest in Africa, which means we're probably the lowest in the world in terms of tax compliance, 6% only. And you go to Ghana, you'll be shocked, 17.5% VAT, and even in a normal place, you see 1% COVID fees, COVID levy, 1%. They've introduced that. 2.5% national health insurance, 2.5% education tax fund. And I'm thinking, okay, if this country is collecting this, even in a mere restaurant, if they're collecting all of this, that means they're pulling resources that will make them sustainable in a matter of time. But come to Nigeria, we are at loggerheads, and people resist the government and all of that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Faswa, thank you. Always a delight to have you on the program. Thank you for spending your time with us this morning.
Welcome. Thank you.
Next is Surviving COVID-19, a series that's put together by Bosley Abel.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
My name is Augustine Oko. I'm a businessman. I'm into printing, as you can see. I'm into printing, so printing letterheads, any kind of printing at all, complimentary cards, all. Just printing, receipts, all. I'm into it. So I've been doing this job for more than 28 years now. COVID-19 pandemic really hit us, we the businessmen. Most of the time, people do call me. I work from home, and I work from home precise. So, and the working wasn't coming in a bunk the way I was expecting because of the pandemic. So, it was terrible. You know, I have some clients which I go around to be talking to, you know, then give me job for me to be able to meet up for the year and to feed my family as well. COVID-19 CBN loan and the rest, I saw it on advert, but I have not given it a try. If I get it and I try it and it works for me, first thing that goes on my mind is to how to establish my business. Employ more people. So I employ more people, more youths to help me out.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
As part of the African Development Bank's efforts to improve infrastructure in Nigeria, Kano State is set to get $110 million of $563 million the bank is providing. The $563 million fund will be spent on developing rural roads, transport infrastructure, water, sanitation, and agricultural productivity in Nigeria. AFDB President Akinwumi Adesina said this when he paid a court visit to the governor of Kano State, Abdullahi Ganduje, stating that Kano would get $110 million out of the earmarked amount.
Kano has tremendous potential in agriculture. When I was Minister of Agriculture, we introduced these things called heat-tolerant wheat varieties to Nigeria. We got those varieties from Aleppo, Syria. We crossed them with some varieties in Sudan. And then we brought those varieties and we put them at the Lake Child Research Institute. Now, that was because I really felt it was very important for us to begin to get varieties that could adapt to our own situation. When the insecurity situation got very tough, we moved those varieties right here to Kadawa Valley here. Baraka Sunning and Honorable were with me. We were at the Kadawa Valley with the Seriki Nomas. I think the Seriki Nomas had never seen a wheat so tall like that. And Your Excellency, I want to urge you, please, accelerate work on the heat-tolerant wheat varieties. Let me tell you why. In Sudan, we gave Sudan 65,000 metric tons of these same seeds. And for those that do not really understand what 65,000 metric tons means, let me explain it. If you take an Airbus 380 aircraft, the passengers, the fuel, and the luggage, it is 98.4 metric tons. So when you divide 65,000 by that, it's roughly about 660.
The Director General of National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, Brigadier General Shuaibu Ibrahim, says the scheme will remit about 511 million naira to the Federation account for the year 2021. The NYSC board stated these while fielding questions from journalists.
Just last year, we generated about 280 million naira, which we paid to the Federation account. For 2021, we generated 511 million naira. We will also pay to the Federation account. And this is our contribution to the national economy. And I can assure you, corps members with their talents, we're exploring their corps members are acting films. They're also into have national cultural troupe, and they are going to perform. From there, we also generate revenue and bring this as a contribution to the national economy. We are determined to tap the potentials of corps members for this. We want the support of all Nigerians to take care of our corps members feel concerned for their welfare and tap on their potentials. So once we tap the potential of the company, it will reduce them moving here and there, and then cause a lot of issues for the NYC. So all the core members are patriotic. You can see what they did in Anambra.
Now, stocks rose marginally Monday in Nigeria, gaining 0.14%, while shares in Asia were mixed on Tuesday.
On the global market outlook, we begin with a look at shares in Asia, which were mixed in Tuesday trade as investors watch for a market reaction to U.S. President Joe Biden picking Jerome Powell for his second term as Federal Reserve Chairman. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index declined 1.11%, while mainland Chinese stocks were mixed, with the Shanghai Composite up 0.19%. Markets in Japan are closed on Tuesday for a holiday. European stocks are expected to open lower on Tuesday as markets look ahead to the latest Purchasing Managers Index data for the Eurozone. The UK's FTSE Index is seen opening 14 points lower at 7,255.45. Germany's DAX 52 points lower. CAC 40 of France also expected lower. U.S. stocks were mildly lower in early morning trading on Tuesday. Dow futures shed 33 points. S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq 100 futures both traded below the flat line. In Africa, stocks on Monday started out positively. Market later closed mixed and are expected to remain so when the numbers come in later in the day. Boss De Able, Business Express.
And we drop the anchor here. Business Express returns tomorrow at 3 p.m. Do enjoy the rest of the day, and God bless Nigeria.